Quack, quack, quack. Listeners, just about the biggest game in the freaking world is coming up here. That is right. Oregon Ducks versus the Ohio State. That's what I'm going to start saying, actually. I like that. We all know how big of a game this is. We all know that this team, I don't know if it's like a rivalry or just a one-sided hatred. That's probably more realistic. But like if you go over and look at the Winsipedia, we all love Winsipedia. There's that lovely section at the end where it has all those categories of like all-time records, national championships, how many conference championships, bowl games, all that, and they'll have them side by side comparing two teams. If you look at Oregon and Ohio State, I got it pulled up right here. It is depressing, y'all. Ohio State owns every single one of those categories, and I show this just to pump us up for this game. I also invited a wonderful guest. That is right, the creator, the founder, the man behind Ditch Ritch, and our dear friend James Voss returning to the podcast. How you doing, James?
Go Ducks. Thank you so much for having me on, Adam. I am doing great. Huge week, mighty big week, as the advertising mechanisms around the U of O are calling it a mighty big week, and they aren't wrong. Probably the biggest game in Autzen Stadium history, possibly the biggest regular season game in Oregon Duck history. Crazy, and I hope on Sunday we're saying the same things, that it is as big as we're hyping it up to be. So yeah, no, thanks so much for having me on, and I can't wait to talk about Ohio.
That's right, Ohio. Know thee about it. Now, so we've played them 10 times, as y'all know. The first 9 were losses. It is nuts. It all started in 1958. We want to cover all of these games. Really look back into the quacking time machine here. Now, first of all, I thought it'd be fun to start off with, well, just the most recent game, which is, of course, that 2021 season. After the COVID era, or the COVID season, Mario Cristobal and Anthony Brown Jr., no Kayvon Thibodeau, they go over to the Horseshoe and beat them. This is the most recent one. This is the one that we remember the most. I remember thinking, especially, I believe, after a Fresno State game, which came down to the wire, came down to like a shoestring tackle, basically, that I thought we were going to get blown out. Because that's just, in my head, though, it's just what happens when Oregon plays Ohio State. They had canceled the game that was supposed to be in Oregon because of COVID, so now it was only an away game. It just felt impossible. And out of nowhere, thanks to our god, CJ Verdell, we get the W. Now, in my opinion, and I said this at the time, before the game, after the game, that was the biggest regular season win in Oregon football history. You could probably, in my opinion, make an argument that that was one of the most meaningful wins, or one of the biggest, whatever you want to say, biggest wins, full stop, including bowl games and such. What are your thoughts on that game? What are your memories?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like just bully. It's one of those games where you just bullied Ohio State in their house. It was one of the best things about Mario. We have a lot of thoughts about Mario now, but his ability to kind of understand the physicality of football, and winning a football game like that is honestly one of the most satisfying ways to win a football game, especially when you're Oregon and we're so conditioned. We're this fast, stylish kind of finesse football program, and we're always considered, that's the biggest knock, whether it was Stanford in the 2010s, any SEC team we ever played. Can they play with the big boys? Can they push them around? And that was something that Mario really brought into this. He has a stubborn commitment to that physicality. And honestly, it showed out that day. CJ Verdell ran all over them. Our offensive line ran all over them. Defensive line without Kayvon just pushed him around. And I think that honestly broke Ryan Day. And that might honestly, because he fired his defensive coordinator after that game or after that season. And his big thing last year was this knock that they had against Ohio State, the general media, that they weren't physical because they got pushed around by Michigan. Michigan probably gets more of the credit of breaking Ryan Day and really giving him this commitment to physicality. Yeah. But a Pac-12 team coming into your own house and beating you like that, and then going the next week and doing the very Oregon Duck thing and losing to Stanford, that might be where I, in retrospect, it's hard for me to say that that's the most meaningful. It was one of the biggest, the biggest wins, but in terms of meaningfulness, of course, Mario did the Mario thing where he totally dilutes his own success by being Mario Cristobal and losing to Stanford. But it was so satisfying to win that game, and I there's so many like really great memories of Anthony Brown. Really, like it was kind of validating because that Fresno State game, Kalen DeBoer coached Fresno State. Yeah,
that's game. Right. That's right.
So Mario's beating Kalen DeBoer, something Dan hasn't done. People aren't saying that. It's but no, like it was really validating to have that like 5th year transfer senior as your quarterback in front of 100,000 people, and he was absolutely like composed, poised in all of the stressful situations that came up during that game. And he was part of that running attack as well. He was a very stout runner in his own right, as well as just a pretty passable game manager in that one too. And that was really fun to see too. Anthony Brown beat Ohio State. People forget.
I know he's played in the NFL. People are way too harsh on him. It's really ridiculous.
And in retrospect, we know that there was no one behind him, so he was the only option.
Exactly. And like if he were the backup quarterback and came out and did that, people would have a statue of him. But because he was supposed to be this like graduate, like starter, people just crap all over him. I mean, you'll see more images from Duck fans of that terrible pass where he's like out of bounds against Utah than you will be like, him celebrating in the horseshoe after beating them for the first time ever.
Leave it to me to turn this Ohio State retrospective into yet another defense of Anthony Brown.
I mean, we're about to go through this. All right. There's some good QBs. There's some great Duck players that we're going to be mentioning. None of them have ever beaten Ohio State. And it truly feels like that is the benchmark where all the times where we've gotten this like, national hype, it still feels like, but then we're like you said, like once we get to that top tier of like back in the day, Nebraska or something, or Miami or Ohio State, that's truly the one who's stayed pretty consistently great throughout the decades. Once we get there, that's when the recruiting will show up that we're just not there and stuff, which is kind of crazy. Where it's like Cristobal was amazing at recruiting as well. We all know that. This is probably number one thing he can do. That and run the ball, even if it means he's going to lose the game. But this matchup here in 2024, which maybe at the very end we can make our predictions and really date this thing, see how right or wrong we'll be. But this is the only one where it feels like, oh man, we have the horses to go toe to toe with them. Like, sure, their overall roster talent, if you just were to grade it out, is going to be a scooch higher than the Ducks. But as far as who we're seeing on the field starting right now, and even like right behind them, this is an equal match, except for
pound for pound. And it's crazy to say that, but it's it will show out, I think, in a very good game, no matter what. Gosh, I hope on Saturday. But I think it's surreal when you're looking back at some of these really bad seasons, really bad teams, laughably bad Oregon Duck teams.
Absolutely.
And where Ohio State, like the names you're seeing on Ohio State's side, the names that everyone already knows in the college football world. And you got the toilet bowl team out there. So it's definitely surreal that we're at this point saying we're pound for pound ready to go number 2 versus number 3 in Autzen Stadium with Ohio State.
Yeah. Well, toilet bowl number 2, it all makes sense. So let's get into let's just hop right back into it. 1958 is the first time we played. The Ducks coach is, of course, the great Len Casanova. He's actually coached just about I'm just checking it. Yes, he has gone against as far as the Ducks are concerned, the Ohio State Buckeyes the most. He had 3 games against them, 3 bites at the apple, all turned sour though. The first one, so as far as these 2 teams, they finished with records of Oregon had 7-4, which at this time was pretty dang good. Ohio State 9-1. But this game is kind of fun because it's one of those, like, it goes to show you where we're at, but also it goes to show you that we appreciate even just showing up, because we got the headline up here: Ducks magnificent in 10-7 defeat. Rose Bowl fans still looking for quote unquote mismatch. Oregon may have lost the Rose Bowl game to Ohio State, but thousands of football fans are still looking for that mismatch. The Webfoots were billed as the worst Pacific Coast Conference team to appear in the annual clash since the Big Ten PCC Pact was inaugurated in 1947. Because remember, this is actually a Rose Bowl game. But they almost did what only one other PCC team has done: best the Big Ten representative. No club has come closer to the Big Ten representatives in losing. Wow. Nobody can be humiliated and take it, Oregon coach Len Casanova said after the game. He was referring to the barrage of uncomplimentary remarks hurled at the Webfoots. So no one believed in us, Len Casanova. I mean, there's obviously like the Casanova Center, but I do believe he kind of doesn't get enough credit for just sticking around.
Yeah. The godfather of Oregon football in so many ways, especially so many older people within and around the athletic department, I think, knew him personally, or was literally godson of Len Casanova. I actually know someone who is a godson of Len Casanova, and so literally godfather. And it's really cool. It's funny reading that, like, sunshine pumping kind of article. It sounds like me. It's validating. It sounds like Ditch Ritch. And
I also have the book. This is a great book, Oregon Ducks Football: 100 Years of Glory. And this is the most sunshine you can get. First sentence: Oregon couldn't repeat, because they had a pretty dang good 1957 season. Oregon couldn't repeat its magic of 1957, but the Ducks might have been the most amazing 4-6 team ever.
hey, that's people are saying that was the most amazing 4-6 team ever. Last year was the worst 12-win team in Oregon history. People are saying.
Oh, you know what? I read the wrong one, actually. That was the year after, so they were upset they couldn't repeat. But I got all the close calls and near misses were finally balanced for the Ducks in 1957, sending them to the Rose Bowl with a 7-3 record. The 3 defeats by a total of 13 points were matched by 3 victories by 3 points or less. So it's just like, that's as high as it can be. It's like, wow, I can't believe we lost to Ohio State in such great fashion.
And you might be getting to this, but the MVP of that game is a historic trivia question. Do you know who the MVP was of this 1958 Rose Bowl?
I actually don't. Maybe Mel Renfro or so. That's probably way later, ain't it? Yeah.
He was a little later, but the MVP of this game was Oregon's Jack Crabtree. And he is only one of 2 players to ever win the Rose Bowl MVP in a losing effort, to ever win that MVP outright. Some people have shared. Sometimes there was a member of the winning team and the losing team, but he is one of two. It's like a fun fact. He won the MVP even though we lost. And
That's
do you know
cool.
who you probably don't, the other player. Have you ever heard of the guy Wrong Way Roy? He played for Cal.
I've heard that name. And
Reese Davis mentioned him this week or last week when they were at College Game Day in Berkeley. And so Wrong Way Roy, he picked up a fumble in the Rose Bowl, literally ran it 69 yards the other way. Nice. And but then the guy who tried to tackle him, his teammate, Benny Loam, tried to stop him from running the wrong way.
Nice.
Benny Loam in 1929 is the only other player, along with Jack Crabtree, to be named MVP of the Rose Bowl in a losing effort because he tried to tackle and stop his own teammate from sabotaging the game.
That's so good. I like back in the day when they took these things less seriously and were willing to do a joke vote. It's so good, man.
Yeah, it's like the most valuable player. Like valuable is like I'm not sure. I think technically valuable is has a positive connotation, but like the most important to the game is like the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State and Ole Miss a couple years ago. The guy who lifted up his leg and like to pretend to pee like a dog in the end zone. He was the most important player in the game. He
Absolutely.
was the one, or the guy last week who tried to do a shotgun in a player's face and got a big penalty.
Who will time remember? You know, it'll be him. So yeah, we were basically taking this as a loss. I mean, as a win. And if you look back at it, like the next, 8 games coming, this is as close as we're getting for a while. As you were saying, Crabtree named the game's outstanding player for nearly upsetting engineering the upset. We actually outgained them like 351 to 304 yards. I got a quote here from then assistant coach Jerry Fry, who will then become a failed coach for us a little later. There is no way anyone who was connected with it can forget the Rose Bowl game. It was out of this world and unbelievable how we played. So after the game was over, Casanova had a message for the LA press, which had been unmerciful in ridiculing the Ducks. And they just, everyone was on Ohio State's side, kind of like they are now. Hey, we've got a few good football players up here. When someone says that you're absolutely no good, you get a little irritated. I know I did, and I know the players did. Also, so after the game, they all returned to the Ambassador Hotel. And in the post-game presser, they said, Mel Allen came by. He had announced the game. He said it was the damnedest party he ever saw for a loser. So they were partying hard. I do love that at the hotel afterwards.
The Ambassador Hotel is not a hotel you historically want to return to. That's where Bobby Kennedy was shot in the kitchen.
Oh, nice. That's why we have you here.
I hope we do not stay there the next time we play in LA. Do not. No more Ambassador Hotel for Oregon Ducks.
That's really good. That's like pretty soon here. We'll find
10 years
that
later.
like one of our best like wins in a season will be against like OJ Simpson, and the headlines are always.
I got some OJ takes.
Good. It's so fun. I love shit like that. Anyway, so there you have it. 1958, wonderful year. I mean, we practically didn't lose if you really look at it. Now 3 years later, 1961. The final outcome here, well, the Buckeyes 8 wins, 1 loss, I believe, or a tie. I don't even know. 4-6 was Oregon's record. This is again Len Casanova versus Woody Hayes. Over and over and over, we're going to get that. And I got this here, even harder to read. 72-yard touchdown run foils upset bid, I'm guessing. Oregon's football webfoots picked themselves off the turf here this sunny but cold Saturday and proudly battled back before losing 22-12 to Ohio State's Buckeyes. An electrifying 72-yard touchdown run by right halfback Bob Klein 72 seconds after the opening whistle could have been a knockout blow. The comparatively young Webfoot Warriors of Lund Casanova, apparently awed by a gigantic crowd of 82,000, holy shit, settled down after trailing 15-0 and came back with touchdowns in the second and fourth quarters. It was Oregon's sixth straight loss to a Big Ten opponent. The temperature was 38 degrees at game time with a wind about 10 miles per hour, but the weather conditions proved to be no factor. Coach Woody Hayes, Buckeyes still unbeaten and battling for another Big Ten crown, performed with authority and appeared very definitely the 2 to 3 touchdown favorite the Buckeyes were given prior to the skirmish. Oregon made fewer mistakes, which was well, with a running attack that rolled up 370 net yards on the ground. The Buckeyes started off as though they might duplicate the 44-0 debacle over Illinois early in the season, but after Klein's great run and fullback Bob Ferguson's power drive in the opening minute of the second quarter, the Webfoots came back with a 29-yard touchdown from Mel Renfro. There he is, Mel Renfro. I knew he was coming soon. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting time, early 60s. I know we got a game like against Texas where it's like a big ass deal, which I believe, Mel Renfro is from Texas, if I remember. I know he plays for the Cowboys later. And I mean, this is a time when it's like you got to call ahead and make sure they're going to let you have your black players on the field. But here against Ohio State, it's just another butt kicking. Well, honestly, this game was closer. And looking back at these games, if we hadn't won that game in 2021, this would truly feel just like a cursed series.
Absolutely.
Because there's times when we get close like this, or we'll rally back, we'll have more offensive yards, and still it's just like, nope, that's just the way the universe goes. Yeah.
I mean, this 72-yard shock run play, it sounds like we were playing Ashton Genty that day, and just unstoppable. But Woody Hayes, we know that he, much like Jimmy Lake before him, or Jimmy Lake much after him, he's a legendary player puncher. Woody Hayes punched that Clemson player in the neck in the Orange Bowl or something, finally did him in. But something you can say about Woody Hayes is that at least he punched the other team's players and not his own players like Jimmy Lake did. It's like the historic, the bad guy. It's like, look, I can hurt my own henchmen. And like, that's just to prove how bad I am. Like,
I killed my own men. They mean nothing.
You kind of need the muscle. You need the manpower right now.
Dude, if like Lanning got fired for punching a Washington Huskies player, I would still be like, legend, go. Like, absolutely great guy. Are you kidding me?
Just don't punch Mateo. Just don't punch your own guy. What can I say?
Oh, that would be done. But if he literally just got so fed up that he like punched Will Rogers, oh my god, that'd be so funny.
Punched Jed Fish,
that would be
punchable
epic.
Very punchable face.
He may not get fired if he punched like a full grown man in the opposing coach. I think he's like banned for like 3 games, but I feel like we keep him around because that's funny as hell.
If Harbaugh did it, he'd get like the key to the city.
So. Oh yeah, it'd be like, don't do that again. 1 game suspension. Yeah, that is insane. I do love that team, though, for beating Washington.
We were also independent in 1961. Important. We were kicked out of the PCC with Oregon State because we didn't have the money like that. And that's a fun fact about this time. It was like for 4 or 5 years in this span from like 59 to 64 or something. And we were independent. So this is not a loss like that past one where they said, oh, a PCC team can't beat a Big Ten team. Not a loss for the PCC. So you're welcome, PCC.
Yeah. This is just a skirmish, if anything. I mean, that is crazy. Like Steve Barnett, of course, famous U of O tackle, even has this quote: going into Ohio State Stadium was like entering into a wall of noise. There were 80,000 people there. None of us had ever seen anything like it. And then this is a Gacher, who this is Mike Gacher, one of UO's defensive backs. I remember that Ohio State dressed 119 scholarship players. Oregon didn't have 119 scholarships amongst all its sports. Just straight up.
What an era of college football. The pre scholarship limit, pre TV, all that stuff that revolutionized college football, and now we're in another crazy era.
I know. That's so damn funny to me. So many people. All right, here we go. 1962 was the next one. Yes, it is another loss, 7-26. Len Casanova versus Woody Hayes is the last time Len Casanova will be in one of these games. Pretty similar records, actually. Oregon 6-3-1, Ohio State 6-3. So this is the other thing, is like there's times when Ohio State will be down relatively for who they are, and we'll still not be able to get them. It's incredibly annoying. Once again, this is Mel Renfro just being an absolute beast. 61 was his debut season. 62 is him just being amazing. And Casanova said of this team, it was probably my best team, especially with Mel Renfro. The junior halfback was on his way to becoming an All-American. The line includes people like Ron Snidow, Steve Barnett, both of whom later played many years in the NFL. Mickey Ording, all Coast Guard, and also Dave Wilcox.
Oh yeah.
A future All-Pro defensive back, and then also Bob Berry over at quarterback. Bob Berry. Never sleep on Berry. Oh yeah.
I got a good Bob Berry story from my grandpa. Man. He was watching a game at Hayward Field, because this is 1962.
Yeah.
This is Hayward Field time. And Bob Berry, they were going for it on fourth down, I think against Washington. And Bob Berry was rolling out and kind of running out of time, running out of field. And he threw it away on fourth down. And it's just my grandpa's like perfect, funny, we stink, like just the hopelessness of Oregon football. Like, throw it, give it a shot. If you throw a pick, it's a punt. Like,
I love the idea that I wish we could go back there, find the footage, and how amazing would it be if it was like the exact same hash mark, exact same stance as Anthony Brown against Utah. Just like, I love just giving up. That's great.
Well, see, Anthony Brown. He's tried to make the play happen. He tried to make it happen.
No, that's
Bob
true.
Berry, he's like, we'll live to play on fifth down. I'll throw it away.
That is true. This is significantly worse. That when I see that clip of that picture of Anthony Brown Jr., I am like, people do forget that like he's trying to make something fucking happen, because this is the second time that he's like has a huge deficit against Utah. And he's just like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe this will work. So yeah. I that is hysterical. Fourth down, just be like, fuck this. It's like you're not even punting. You're not even gonna try to air punt this thing.
Nope.
That is great. That is actually a pretty great story to encapsulate like Oregon football at this time.
Yeah, when I write my book one day, that's the opening. That's the thing that says everything you need to know about Oregon football. Even if one day we reach that top that Phil is spending all this money to get us to, we will never be like not that. Like, we will always be that. No matter how many shiny uniforms we have, we will always be throwing it away on fourth down in Hayward Field.
Len, I mean, like, this is Len Casanova's best teim too. We could be talking about this year for all we know. It's so damn funny, and terrible at the same time. I don't know, man. This season is still like overall a pretty dang good one. Like, I don't know, I guess for us. Do I have something? Oh, yes, I do. I have a clip over here. Boom. Fullback David Francis powering straight ahead at his left guard, went 6 yards for the touchdown. Chuck Mamula kicked the extra point with 6:48 remaining in the first quarter. The Ohio State Buckeyes moved 70 yards in 14th place for the touchdown after Ron Snedow's 12-yard kick went off his foot and out on the OSU 30. Left halfback. Oh, is this literally just a recap? Yes, it is. The Buckeyes game. Yeah, it is. So there you go. There's a little bit. Hey, here's a little highlight. I'll read this just for a little bit of happiness. Mel Renfro returned the kickoff 24 yards to the Oregon 30. On the first play on a fake to the fullback, Renfro went off his right tackle for 39 yards, the Ohio State 31, but a clipping penalty moved Oregon back to its 42. But still first down. That's probably like the highlight.
That's such a highlight. It's weird clipping on a 39-yard run, but they still gave us the first down. Like,
yeah.
It should be second down. What are we doing? It should be.
I know.
What's happening?
Who knows? I can't even imagine what refs were like back then. Like it was with no TV and no replay and like probably like no mics. Yeah, I mean, I guess mics existed back then, but I wonder. I feel like it's just hand signals you telling people.
Yeah, no, and probably just total like anarchy. Like if enough people, because they're all just like standing, all the fans are just standing on the sideline.
Yeah,
like when the Washington fans tackled Oregon players when they're about to score, like they could just go out there and yell at the ref enough and get the call to go their way.
Hell yeah. Man, back when football was real, you know what I mean?
Yeah, back when men were men.
1967, speaking of a real man, Len Casanova, no longer a football coach, but becomes the athletic director. Now, I like this little tidbit. Casanova means new house in Spanish. And yes, he did build us a new house. I'm stealing that straight from this book. I wish I was that poetic. Autzen Stadium starts kicking. 1967, we got a place to stay, and yet we embarrass ourselves there.
Yeah, what a way to christen it.
Yep. And we also got Jerry Fry, who the former assistant begins his not so great tenure here. Oregon had a new coach, a new stadium, a new formations, and new talent. As fall camp started in 1967, Autzen Stadium was amazingly nearing completion after a January 5th start. Both fans and alumni waited anxiously to see what the new blood could accomplish. On the first day, Fry greeted 65 players, including 6'1", 217-pound all-coast middle guard George Dames from Medford, my hometown, and All-America candidate senior defensive back Jim Yazoo Smith from San Diego. I mainly just wanted to read Yazoo, honestly. Yeah, we also had a promising sophomore quarterback, Tom Blanchard from Grants Pass, but no depth whatsoever. And obviously that really comes into play when you're playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. I only got a little clip here. The 25,000 spectators who showed up for the dedication of Oregon's new Autzen Stadium Saturday wound up with a graphic education on the topic, how to lose a football game in the first 6 minutes. That's I loved crazy. Back in the day, writers like columnists really were sassy, and I miss that time. They used to just like pepper in opinions, be super furious when they were recapping. But this is apparently how you lose a game in the first 6 minutes. Here's how it works, step by step. 1, the first pass you attempt is deflected, not once, but twice into the waiting arms. An enemy linebacker who returns it 45 yards to your 2-yard line. Does that say Tom? From where the opponent gets a virtually automatic touchdown. The second pass you try is also deflected and also be intercepted by an enemy linebacker on your own 33-yard line. 6 plays later, the opponent has another touchdown, but misses extra point. That puts you behind 13-0 with the football game barely 6 minutes underway. That's the old ball game for all practical purposes, especially if you're playing Ohio State, as Oregon's Ducks were Saturdays. By the time the long, hot afternoon was over, the big, strong Buckeyes had added a field goal and 2 second-half touchdowns for a crushing 30-0 victory, and the Ducks could do little about it. They penetrated Buckeye territory only 3 times. Their own steam. Okay, times. Oh, I get you. They penetrated Buckeye territory only 3 times under their own steam. The deepest penetration went only to the Ohio State 28 before being killed off by a pass interception. I love how they have to say like a pass interception. In these old ones, they say like, I feel like intercepted can be like a pass or a tackle. They use the word interception for way too
pre-forward pass. Also, just liberal use of the word penetration. You get one of those in an article like that. We don't need deepest penetration.
Would you allow this writing if someone like turned this in exactly to Ditch Ritch?
Oh, this is right up my alley. It's like something goofy, and this is exactly what I'm going for. How to lose a football game in 6 minutes. Heck, I talked about how that Bob Berry book, that Bob Berry story is going to open my book. I might have just found the title of my book.
There you go. That is honestly a very solid title. How to lose a football game.
I can see it's like minutes. A set like the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like back to back. It's like Bob Berry and Mark Helfrich back to back. How to Lose a Football Game in 6 minutes.
That's solid. I love these sassy guys. And like it gets crazier if you go back to like the teens and stuff. They are truly just writing whatever. It's almost like Jack Kerouac shit. Like it is stream of consciousness shit.
Hey, Jack Kerouac, good writer.
There you go. He seems like someone who'd be on the beat of Oregon football. So once again, it does not. Where were we at? Where are we at right now? Was that 1967? That was
67. We got 68 coming up. Well, 67 is the only other time they ever came to Eugene. That's an important.
That is crazy to think of, ain't it? Yeah. Oh my gosh. And they've lucked out sometimes too. It's crazy to think. 1968, the next one. Once again, Jerry Fry, still around, versus Woody Hayes, also still around. So Ohio State would finish 10-0. I imagine this is one of their national championship seasons. I didn't look up any of them because it depressed me too much. Oregon's final 4-6, and the game itself would be 6 versus 21. 1968, fun year. It's fun to think about like football going on and then like what the country's going through. There's some hippies
at the Ambassador Hotel. Speaking of the Ambassador Hotel, they knew that it was going to be a bad time to be in LA, be at the Ambassador Hotel, so they decided we're not even going to get close to the Rose Bowl this year. Not going to stay there, going to stay away from Sirhan.
I forgot to mention in 1958, I also have a quote here where they said Bobby Kennedy showed up at their party and they said, "Hey, I'm sorry you guys lost against Ohio State, but you just got to shoot your shot." And that's a quote from him. That's a quote. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's almost like
it's surreal.
It is. It's almost like it's made up. 1968, OSU stops Ducks 21-6. Ohio State. That's right. Yeah. Ohio State erupted for a pair of second half touchdowns Saturday on the way to a 21-6 intersectional football victory over stubborn Oregon. The 6th ranked Buckeyes scoring their second triumph of the season before 70,919 fans handed the Ducks their third loss. Ohio's defense gave Oregon a touchdown in the dying seconds of the first half and then shut off the Webfoots without a first down the rest of the game. I think it's very amazing that they're still using Webfoots in 1968. We really dropped it at a certain point.
It was like they had already said Ducks once or twice. Yeah. And so they're using it as a replacement. Interesting thing, when I was looking into this season, this was the first year, 1968 was the first year ever that USC came to Eugene. 1968. We've been members of the PCC since 1915 at this point. 1968 is the first time they ever came to Eugene because they wouldn't play at Hayward, it seems like, and they only ever played at Multnomah Stadium in Portland otherwise. And
that was a big time. Yeah, that Multnomah. I honestly would love. I believe the Beavers had a game there. Like
yes,
a
they
while
did.
ago.
They played
I would
Montana
love.
State like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I
In
would love it.
Providence Park.
Like honestly, can you imagine how like we shouldn't for like financial reasons for Oregon State, honestly, but can you imagine if the Platte took place there every single year?
That would be it. Would be
awesome.
Real easy on me as someone who's in Portland.
Yeah. Well, and like literally, like that's going to be like the majority of fans are probably from, like obviously Corvallis, Eugene. There's going to be a bunch of people up there, but that would be it'd be a bigger game than it is right now. I mean,
It would
obviously,
be
I
funny,
like,
yeah,
it'd be great. I would love it. It's historic.
But to go back to that USC team, that USC team we mentioned earlier had someone known affectionately at the time as the Juice.
That's right.
And we actually held OJ Simpson to just 67 yards that year. We lost, but we held him to 67 yards. And it sounds like in a couple years after this, the California Highway Patrol could have used guys like Oregon's Kent Grote and Jack Rust back in 1994.
Yeah.
We knew how to stop OJ. No one else seemed to.
We could stop OJ back in the day. Yeah. I even have a quote here from the great OJ Simpson, literally from 1968. I think I'll stay away from Oregon from now on. Nothing good has happened for 2 years now. Oregon just doesn't like me.
Hey, that was credit to University of Oregon.
We knew it. We knew something was wrong with this dude. And you'll see like great headlines. It'll be like Oregon squeezes OJ, like stuff like that, like a bunch of puns. But I love that we shut him down.
In front of it. We were way out in front of it.
Yeah, we shut him down. We knew it. We knew something was up. We knew with the Huskies and Dahmer and USC and OJ, we can sniff out a killer. We're the University of Oregon, all right? We're the state of Oregon. We know our serial killers.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Ours don't get caught. That's the thing. Okay, 1983. Okay, I was saying this to James earlier before we hit record. Is that Aaron and I, we do these quacking times. We've looked through, like, we started 1894. We've hit about late 60s is where we've gotten, covering every single year, each episode. Now, once we hit the basically like 70s to the early 90s, newspaper.com, Wikipedia, other fans like websites, like archival websites, our archival websites, goducks.com, they simply don't care about these decades. They do not have clips. They'll have clips from the game in 1909, like a news article, but they just give up because this is just such a dead period for the Ducks. We are truly bad. I do not have any paper clips for these next games, but I'll tell you, 1983, Ohio State, yes, another good season for them. How great. 9-3. Probably they considered it a terrible season. Earl Bruce versus Rich Brooks, our very own Rich Brooks, who never ceases to make me laugh, even to this day in 2024. Oregon had a 4-6-1 record back in the day when you can truly tie, you know what I mean? And 1983, crazy year. You got anything fun for this stretch?
Well, this is the Toilet Bowl team.
Yes,
Mike Jorgensen, the Toilet Bowl team, and so once again, historically bad U of O team. One of the places that we point to really quickly when we talk about how we are now versus how we once were. But I had a little thing here that I saw. So our offensive coordinator at the time was a guy named Bob Toledo, former UCLA coach. His name is Bob Toledo. And with a name like that, you would have thought that he had a little inside track on Ohio, just a little bit. We lost. We lost again. But that's all I get.
Boy. Yeah, it's about it. I mean, we're trying to turn trying to turn the whole team around, trying to get better. There were probably 3 seasons during the 18 years in which Rich Brooks was here, in which his job was in serious parity. And then one great season really saves like his career and gets
Yeah.
him a better job, arguably,
I mean,
afterwards.
that's the whole thing. If anyone hasn't read it or heard it or seen it, that's Ditch Ritch. What I
Yeah.
write, the namesake is about that feeling, like the fire the coach, fire everyone, bench the quarterback, like all that reactive stuff. We stuck with Rich through bad times and through just chugging along,
And then
just
more
to get
bad
that. Even
times.
that season, we started 1-2 with losses to Hawaii and Portland, or Hawaii and Utah, or Hawaii and Portland State. I don't even remember. It's one of those two. And then he turns it around. He wins the Pac-10 and he takes us to the Rose Bowl, and it's the reason that we're here at all. Him and Kenny Wheaton. But
Yep.
it's that feeling like we are the losers, people, and we stick with some losers every now and then, or we did at one point, and it's what brought us here. And
It's true.
I think it's a unique. People say Oregon doesn't have tradition, and I think that's wrong. We go through all these. We're talking about all these years. There's years and years of rich tradition,
Rich tradition.
and that's part of it. Just because it's not a national championship winning tradition doesn't mean it's not a tradition. It's history, and it's history that's written in this case by the losers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is 100% us. He cracks me up. He's a very funny follow on Twitter, by the way, too. Because in this 83 season, it's again, like, people are like, I don't know about Rich, because we start off by at Autzen Stadium, we had suffered a 21-15 loss to Pacific, to damn Pacific.
Yeah.
That's holy hell. And then
the
it was
pride of the West Coast Conference.
Yeah.
Basketball now.
And then 31-6 loss to Ohio State after that. And so we had a week off. So fortunately, at least that loss to Ohio State is like one of those moments, kind of like Chip Kelly, like, writing all the reasons why we suck and burning it or whatever, kind of like it's one of those moments. Oregon had a week off after the Ohio State loss. The school was not yet in session, and in those days there were no restrictions on practice time. Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Back when men were men.
Back when men were men. It's crazy to hear shit like that. It's so funny. No restriction practice time. That's great. Brooks ordered probably no restrictions for like how many players could die in said practice time too.
Oh, Willie Taggart would have loved this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like finally Rabdos won't like stop the practice, Brooks ordered a return to daily doubles during the off week. It's so good. Guys who play now have no idea. Linebacker Don Pelham. Telling people what that week was like is like the stories about parents telling their kids how they had to walk 5 miles to get the cows and take them to the barn before school. I tell guys how tough it was, and they just don't believe we could have done anything like that. But Coach Brooks said we were going to learn to hit, and we hit every day. Yeah, so there you go. But then they beat Houston like afterwards, and that was the big game for them. That's the reason why Rich Brooks got a little bit more, like time to stick around. So Rich Brooks, man, what's great about him is he is the ultimate guy of just doing enough at your job to stick around to the point. And, you're not the best at your job, but you're there long enough where everyone's like, he's cool.
Yeah, and he gets the field named after him. Great. He's been a great soundbite. You talk about his Twitter, but like he was a great soundbite back then. He was making fun of the shirts that said Ditch Ritch in the parking lot the year they went to the Rose Bowl. He also had like across 10 different years, he would reference a specific like when they lost to Pacific, like he would say, oh, like these guys couldn't beat Squahocky Canyon Institute of Technology. And he said Squahocky Canyon Institute of Technology in reference to like the Little Sisters of the Poor kind of team.
Yeah.
He talked about this school across 10 years of interviews in his time as an Oregon. And I bet you he's at Kentucky. He said that same stuff too. And that school does not exist. It is a complete invention in his mind, and it's just another one of the beautiful parts of Rich Brooks' mind is that he just invented this punching bag of a school to make fun of, Pacific University, who beats him.
Yep. I love it. That's so great. Now we got 1988. Well, not another down year. Or another average year, maybe, or 1987. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah.
Yes. Rich Brooks versus Earl Bruce. This is a 14-24 loss. Again, like this is annoying. 6-5 was Oregon's final record. 6-4-1 was Ohio State's record.
We should have had him.
We should have freaking had him, and yet, no, absolutely not. But Bill Musgrave is here. You gotta love that.
You knew what my soapbox was going to be for this one. Oh,
hop on it, man. Let's hear it then. Let's hear some legend.
So this was his second start ever. There's an old the 1989 Independence Bowl tape that has this whole thing about how Bill Musgrave committed to play and come from Grand Junction, Colorado, and he was like one of the first big like quarterback recruits. And I don't even know, like Rivals and 247 wasn't around back then. So who knows what kind of blue chip rating he had, but he chose to come to Oregon and this is his second start ever. So totally thrown to the wolves, much like Herbert and his first start ever against Washington, 70-21 or whatever. But so his second start ever is at number 5 Ohio State. Later in his freshman year, he would beat USC. He would beat number 16 Washington, and he'd beat Oregon State 44-0. But he was totally thrown in the fire. And Bill Musgrave is consistently, and so many people have this memory of quarterbacks. Probably only goes back to Joey Harrington, maybe Akili Smith sometimes, and then maybe Danny O'Neill, maybe just because of that Rose Bowl year. But Bill Musgrave, in terms of him partnering up with Rich Brooks, sticking with Oregon, he's consistently like a forgotten legend in Oregon football history, a forgotten part of everyone thinks that the story begins in 94 and it begins in 87, 89 with that Independence Bowl, and then 90, the Freedom Bowl, back-to-back bowl games, unheard of because the newspapers were literally forgetting about us, like you said. And so like with Bill Musgrave and Terry Obie and Anthony Q. Newman and Rich Brooks, like these guys pulled Oregon from the gutter to go into Shreveport, just from gutter to gutter, but to go to win the Poylan Weed Whacker Bowl, the Independence Bowl or whatever. And it's a forgotten part of why Oregon is where they are right now. And that Bill Musgrave is the first big recruiting get in kind of Oregon lore, outside of, obviously there's guys like Mel Renfro, Dave Wilcox, all before him, but that was before the recruiting industrial complex really started to kick up. But I love Bill Musgrave, and luckily he's had a storied NFL coaching career, and he's had a lot of success. But too many people in the Oregon, too many people my age at least, don't talk about Bill Musgrave enough, and I need more. I need more Muss in my life.
It's true. I agree. And actually, so Brooks had this to say: some people on my own staff were surprised when I went with Bill to start the season. But in scrimmages, even if he didn't look pretty, he got the team downfield. He was a great leader. I think it's a great way to put it.
Truth.
Now we are going to suddenly hop way forward to games that we were both actually alive during. 1987, I was still not kicking, but 2010, or 2010. I was absolutely there. And I will say this is probably the first, because I really didn't care about, I went to high school football. I'm from Medford. I would go to North Medford high school football games, just about every single one. I was in the marching band, and it was just a place to hang out. But I'd get into the game sometimes, but I was really not a giant sports fan. I played flag football in like elementary school and football in middle school, but like not a giant. I didn't have a team. Every once in a while, I loved this guy named Brett Favre for the Green Bay Packers. I was like, this guy morally is really on top of things.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to shape my life after him because he seems like he makes really smart, good decisions, so like every once in a while I would do that, but otherwise I was truly not a sports fan. Then I go to college, started my first year 2008. He could not have been better to jump on the bandwagon of like, okay, what's this? Like
Chip
Oregon
Kelly
football, huh? Yeah, who's this Chip Kelly guy? His balls seem to be bigger than the average person. It was amazing time to jump on. Jeremiah Masoli was my god. I loved it so much. I mean, LaMichael in here is like a shrine to like LaMichael James and Kenyon Barner, and I mean, we all know this isn't the beginning of what Oregon would become, but this is kind of the first results of like us really being like truly an offensive juggernaut. First couple seasons of like, holy hell, we got this thing coming. Obviously, like Dixon is truly like the beginning arbiter of it, but like we get this thing humming. It all results in a Rose Bowl appearance, and this is again at the time because I there's a huge stretch where we go without winning a Rose Bowl. Am I correct? Like there's like 1916. And then it was the game against Wisconsin. Am I right? Like,
yeah. It was. We beat Penn in that 1916.
Hell yeah, we did.
I think it was like 6-7 or something. Literally like the Red Box Bowl against Michigan State score. And I remember Chip says in 2012 when we beat Wisconsin, he's like, it's been 100 and something years since you could say Oregon football Rose Bowl champions or something. And
that's nuts. I remember being so nervous watching that game, just like, are we gonna lose again? Like, is it gonna be 100 years until we get back here?
When it was Russell Wilson, he was coming down and like the weird, they started the play clock and because he motioned it instead of whistle, they probably should have had another shot. Like if we're being honest, they probably should have had one more play, but I took it. I was like, oh, it's over. Oh
my God. I watched it at Tiny Tavern in Eugene, Oregon. You know where that is?
No, I have no clue where Tiny Tavern.
Oh my God. This is, here's a little tangent. But Tiny Tavern, it's still there. It perpetually gets closed down due to sanitation reasons and then reopened as a new restaurant, and then that fails, and it just keeps doing that. It's like across the street from like what used to be Papa's Soul Food, Nelson's Lit. Okay. Yeah. It's that little weird like bar. It's very small. It's like tiny. It's a tiny tavern. And I remember all the reviews were so funny online because they were all like left basically from traveling bands who would play there, because they did have some music, even though it was a terrible, like the acoustics were truly awful. It just got way too loud with way too little of sound. And like the men's bathroom didn't have a door. So you could just see literally straight into, like, I can see the toilet stall. Like I could see the toilet from the front door of this restaurant. It was so unsanitary. And every single review of it was people being like, hey, really good place to have basically a live practice. They gave us free beer. It was a fun time. Smells like piss. And every single comment, every single review was like high rating, and then ended with smells like piss though. Like it was so funny. So that's where I watched that Rose Bowl. I'll never forget it. It was an amazing time.
Oh,
but we're talking about
where you win.
Oh yeah, we're talking about a different Rose Bowl here. This one I remember being in the car. I was in a car because I was very passionate, but not to the point where I would nowadays I would cancel all trips. We are not traveling. I am watching this game. Instead, I listen to it on the radio, which I do love doing that. But for Rose Bowl,
Jerry. Oh yeah.
Rose Bowl, I'm watching it. I'm not, but this is at a time in life where I would allow that. And I remember this was probably the first time being really crushed as a fan. Like, because it was a close enough game, but they really had the advantage. Our only loss, wait, let's see. I keep going 2010, but this is a Rose Bowl, so it's 2009.
2009, we lost to Stanford.
That is right.
The week after, and this is the game I keep comparing this weekend to, is the Fright Night, the Halloween USC 10 verse 9 or something, 10 verse 5 or something.
That is right. And this really is like week 1, we lose to number 14 Boise State too. So it's so crazy to like start your coaching career like this, where it's like we lose to number 14 Boise State in Boise 8-19, and then a very close win over Purdue 38-36. Like you said, that terrible Stanford loss after Fright Night. I mean, who knows what happens if we win that game? I don't even want to think about it. There was that best game. I think the reason why I was so hyped for this season, for football in general, which was like a slow developing thing for me, was because I also remember listening. I just got out of class. This is this season. Just got out of class. I go over to Caspian's.
Oh, Caspian. R.I.P. Oh, that Euro.
R.I.P. Go over to Caspian's. I get my grub because it was the only place it's very affordable, I'm getting some food, and I'm there for like 50 minutes, way longer than I need to be, because it's only me and it's the cooks. And on the radio, they have the 2009 Oregon at Arizona game.
Best game ever. Oh my God.
Best game ever. And I listened to the last 50 minutes of that game on the radio, which I know, like, some people, that sounds insane to listen to the game on the radio. There are certain things that are just so much more dramatic and so much more fun because you can't see it. Those moments when you have to wait for them to describe what the hell happened, especially in this game when they're describing like Arizona's fans are ready to storm the field. Like Masoli burst it. Like, holy hell. Nothing will get you more hyped than that. Then you have number 13 Oregon State, greatest at this time Civil War game ever, and then
War for the Roses.
And then finally we get to this Rose Bowl. What are your memories of this season, of this Rose Bowl? I mean, this is a huge one for guys our age.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. This is like formative. That day, other than like my wedding, that 2009 Halloween day, waking up first thing in the morning to watch game day, and then to like the progression of the day. It was just me and my dad and our season tickets that day, and we're walking around getting candy from everyone. I got a shirt that I wore forever. It was like a college game day black Fright Night shirt, and then me and my cousin like stormed the field that night, and he put me on his shoulders, and because they used to do game day from the field after the game, and so it was like the post game, and so I'm on my cousin's shoulders like waving my hand. I went on ESPN.com on their really bad video watching site back then, and I like rewatched just to see the little fuzzy 3 pixels of me waving my hand. It was like the best day of my life at that point as a freshman in high school. But obviously all those other, Arizona and the War for the Rose is huge. And then to do this Rose Bowl, this Ohio State Rose Bowl that I was in Sun River actually at the time with some family friends of ours that are Duck fans. And we're watching this game, and it's a little back and forth. The Ohio State is a little outmatched us, and my dad's friend, he keeps saying, "Oh, we got him right where we want him. We got him right where we want him. We got him right where we want him." And from forever now, when we know, or we think that we're definitely going to lose, or we think we got it out of hand, like it's out of hand, we're not doing well, we'll just say to each other, "Oh, we got them right where we want them, guys. We got them right where we want them." Because this is Terrell Pryor,
yes,
and it's actually like right after the regular season ended, Ohio State had this tattoo scandal, this back before NIL, back when people actually like cared about these improper benefits scandals.
It's the most hideous scandal to ever hit college football. We all agree. Right. They should have gotten the death penalty. It's a heinous action.
Almost
nothing has rivaled it.
You know, I think Reggie Bush's mom got help with a down payment. That's the only other thing I can think of.
If you could not mention his name, because that's just such a stain on college football.
But no, so they said, okay, like the players like Terrell Pryor said, if we'll play in the Rose Bowl, but we'll sit out the beginning of next season, or like the first game of next season. And then so they play in the Rose Bowl, and then most of them all declare for the draft.
It's funny as hell.
I could have told you they were going to do that. Like, duh, I would have done that. I'm like, what? So Terrell Pryor plays, and we end up losing a pretty winnable game at that point, which stinks. But I was more crushed. I remember being way more crushed at the Stanford game than this one. I mean, it definitely, like, you just had such high of highs with that War for the Roses. As a guy who went to middle school, high school in Oregon, like that, Oregon State, like it was like 50-50 in Portland and in my school. And so to lose that game would have been a nightmare for me. Losing the Ohio State game, there's not as many people to torment you when you already won kind of the big game of the year. So that's what I remember.
Yeah, man, what a season. And then we got one more. You know, it's nice the way it was really smart of me the way I scheduled this, because
I agree.
Because, you know, we had the nice one in the beginning, and then I think we've built up to the most crushing one. Because we're talking about the 2014 season. We're talking about our second national title run, really should have been our third, but our second national title run, in which this is, you know, Mariota's Heisman run, campaign win. This is us coming off of destroying Florida State. A couple of our players did absolutely the worst thing any human being could do. They smoked some weed. They got busted for it. We're down some receivers. I mean, this is one of our greatest seasons of all time. One of our greatest players. I feel like nowadays people, when they talk about this game, really sell us short of like, oh yeah, that was a one-sided affair. Like, they got their butts kicked. It was a game. Ezekiel Elliott really blew it up with a counter that we just unfortunately had no freaking answer with. It was kind of like CJ Verdell going against Ohio State. That's what Ezekiel Elliott did to us. I mean, this season is a wonderful season. It's one of those seasons. It also goes to show you, though, where you're like, our last time going against Ohio State, that 2010 Rose Bowl, it's like, I can't believe we're here. I can't believe all the amazing games we've had. We're on an upward trajectory. Yeah, we lost, but hey, what a great time we had. By this time, it's closer to the 2024 where we're going, nope, we have the standard. This isn't even our second. I mean, this is our second like title appearance even in the last like 4 years. So we're even getting used to that. And like, we should have it this time. I remember the feeling of being like, hey, we're seemingly completely unstoppable outside of the worst Arizona game, which still pisses me off so hardcore. The amount of like, I'll see someone pretending to have an assault rifle shooting into the stands, like not get called. You know, nowadays it mainly gets called, but like do something crazy where I'm like, wow, what a celebration. And then one man just putting his hands and bowing, which you see nowadays still all the time. I've never even seen it. Like, no one's even suggesting that you because it's like, pretty peaceful, all right. That's as basic. That's a very respectful thing to do, honestly.
Yeah.
And that changed that game.
Oh my goodness.
It ended up not mattering. And honestly, it was pretty awesome too, because then it really fueled us up for later when we played them in the Pac-12 championship game. We lit Arizona up 59-20 because it was like, okay, this ain't happening again.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it's an amazing season. I mean, we got another time we played against Michigan State. We have that amazing game with Royce Freeman. It's a fantastic season. One of the best we've ever had. I remember this game was the day before my birthday, so I was like, hopefully this is a little birthday present to me. But no, it wasn't meant to be. It was a bummer, but I was happy to be there. And I remember being so happy that it was like, are you kidding me? They're on their third string freshman QB. We got this in the bag. There's also obviously the inaugural playoff. This is the 4-team playoff. I'm just so glad that we had that Oregon-Florida State game.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, like you talk about probably the most meaningful win, like really bring this full circle. Like that's probably like number one, because it's Rose Bowl, it's playoff, it's Jameis, it's that Tony Washington play that is like it's a redemption for him from that point, from that penalty.
Yeah.
This is my freshman year in college. Speaking of freshman year in college,
yeah.
That Arizona game was the first game like where all the students were back. So it was the first game going from the dorms to the game. And obviously that stunk, but then throughout the rest of that season, we just kicked some butt, and Mariota won the Heisman. And then we're back at the beginning of winter term when this game is played, this Ohio State game. And yeah, whenever it's on TV, I'll rewatch it and I'll turn it off like with about 4 minutes left in the third quarter, and we're within a touchdown, or we're within like 10 or something. And I'm like, okay, we hung in there.
I'm trying to remember. It was I remember Devin Allen gets injured. Is it against Florida State, I do believe? Or was it?
I thought he got injured maybe even before that, but
I think
the beginning of Florida State maybe.
I remember somewhere around there. And then who else do we not have receiver wise? Was it Darren Carrington?
Yeah, Carrington is the one who he got to play in the Rose Bowl, but he had before the Rose Bowl, he had popped positive for weed somehow, and then like it came to light in between the Rose Bowl.
Like I love weed. I smoke weed all the time. I have a great time with it. Maybe that wasn't the right time, though. I mean, then again, it's like, it's in your system or whatever. But oh man, you'd like to have Carrington could have really been a game changer there.
And the wild thing is, and I was actually just talking to somebody yesterday who had reffed him in like rec basketball at U of O, and I sat next to him in a journalism class at the time, and he always smelled not like weed, he always smelled like cigarettes. And so I was like, okay, he's just into cigs, I guess. I wish he wasn't. He's an athlete, like it's not great for you. But it was the last thing I thought was that he was going to be popping positive for weed, because I just thought he was a chain smoker. Yeah. But maybe he was doing dirty bowls or something.
I thought that story was going, you're like, and so I passed him this joint. I'm like, dude, you got to try this shit. He's like, I've never touched it before. And you're like, trust me, man, this is going to help you out in the Rose Bowl.
It's like the Dewey Cox, how someone turns him on to, you're going to hate this, Dewey. You don't want any of this cocaine.
It makes winning Rose Bowls feel better. Yeah. And then later on, you're like, well, I'm sorry I did that, man. But like, let's go get some drinks. We'll hang out tonight. You'll drive home. We'll get some McDonald's.
No, I wasn't the guy who gave him the weed, but I was behind him I was the person who asked him to drive me to McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, I heard that you drove there actually, but once you hit it, you're like, dude, I've got too much ahead of me. I can't take this.
You got to switch seats.
We got to switch seats, dude.
No, there was Taylor's at the time. He would go to Taylor's, and he had invented this drink called the DC Pitcher. And I can't remember. It was dark purple. I remember there was a lot of
Are you
Crown
fucking with
Royal.
me? This is real.
Yeah, no, this is 100% real. We became pretty close friends with, for better for worse, with one of the managers / bartenders at Taylor's.
I'm gonna say
Definitely
that's the
as it
worst.
was descending into even more dangerous and OLCC violating
Yeah.
behavior. But Darren Carrington had invented this thing called the DC pitcher that was like a bunch of Crown Royal, probably some Coke, like Coca-Cola, and it was just dark purple. And there were times you'd see him double fisting a DC pitcher. Like, this is back when they would hand someone a pitcher across and just like let that be your drink. You totally understand in retrospect why that place is no longer open. You wish that somehow we were realizing that we were flying a little too close to the sun at the time. But
I know. It's nuts. Like, Taylor, the actual bones of that building are great. Perfect, like
incredible.
Perfect college bar. And that's what like let it get away with like so much stuff. I remember when I was in college, I didn't like go. I was so much more a Rennie's person. And like Taylor, I was more like drink at home or house party person. But like if I was going to a bar, it was more of a Rennie's. The few times I went to Taylor, I really thought of it as like, I don't know, the vibe's a little weird there. I remember one of the only times I went there, I go in there, like getting some beer. On every single TV screen they have Girls Gone Wild.
Oh,
and
no.
It's not, at first you're like, oh, they probably have it on. Back in the day, Girls Gone Wild used to have like a commercial every night on huge channels, you know? And so at first you're looking at it and you're like, oh, okay, this is probably just a commercial for Girls Gone Wild that I'm looking at right now. But then it's suddenly you're like, oh wait, no, this is the DVD.
This is the tape.
This is uncensored.
Oh, no.
This is literally just the owner or whoever popped in a Girls Gone. This is like a Thursday night. This isn't like topless night at Taylor's. It was literally just a random ass night. They just threw it on. And I remember even all of us, you know, probably mostly over 21, definitely a few under 21 people there, I'm sure.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, maybe more. But I remember even us like nasty, you know, young guys that are there talk to some chicks. Every single patron of that bar, male or female, were very skeeved out. Like, yeah, it was a genuinely gross feeling because you're just looking there like, ugh, like, do they think this is? Do they think that like this bar is going to turn into a Girls Gone Wild sitch because they put it like it was it just ruined the vibe immediately. It was so one of the gnarlier things. But
and that's the owner before the owner that ran it into the ground.
Ran it into the ground to hell, straight to hell. It's
just a back-to-back, and I'm sure before that, plenty of questionable decisions made by the owner and operator of Taylor's Bar and Grill.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how this ended up being so much more of a retrospective of specific places in Eugene, many of them shut down nowadays. Yeah. Tiny Tavern, Caspian's, Taylor's, Rennie's still kicking. Rennie's is
Rennie's will never die.
I remember there was a couple stories for Rennie's. I remember it was like my friend had an English professor, right? And he was always like my friend. This is a friend who's like bro, the broiest bro you ever met. And he was even broier, as you can imagine, as an 18, 19, 20-year-old at U of O. And he would always talk shit to his professor. And he'd just be like, man, I could drink you under the table, dude. Like, like he would always say that to him. And on his 21st birthday, his professor's like, all right, yeah, let's all go to Rennie's after class, like with you and all your friends, you know? He's like, yeah, let's go. And he goes there and immediately he buys this kid a pitcher of Guinness and goes, chug that. And just it's not even a competition. He goes, why don't you chug that? And he said he chugged it, immediately vomited. They all laughed at him, had a great time. That always made me love Rennie's. And then one other thing, I have a friend who at this point in his life was an absolute douchebag. He's gotten a lot better since then. He's grown up a lot. But I'm hanging out with my friend and we're at the bar. This is, yes, he's my friend, but this story in no way reflects on me. All right. I would never do anything like this. But we're at the bar and my friend is looking at me. We're both talking about something. Bartender's like near us without breaking his gaze, looking at me. My friend puts out his fingers and snaps, does two snaps, doesn't look at the bartender, and says, "Can we get another round?" and the bartender said, "Well, I think he just snaps his finger. He doesn't say that yet." And the bartender just immediately, rightfully so, I've always respected this, goes, "You snap your fucking fingers out again at me, and I'll throw you out those fucking doors. What do you want?" I loved it so much.
No nonsense. No nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
God,
I couldn't.
I love
believe
that
it.
place.
Yeah,
not much of a partier anymore, but I just love it's that tiny tavern review. It smells a little like piss, and it's awesome.
It's awesome. Taylor's, I think someone could bring that back. Like the bones of it are so good.
It'll come back one day, yeah, for sure.
I don't know why. Like in my head, if I'm getting that place, I'm getting it, and I'm paying whatever it costs to get the rights to just call it Animal House. And just bing bang or Bluto's, something like you can actually get away with, so I think that was his name in Animal House. I forget. That movie kind of sucks, but I would just label it Animal House something, and then just make the easiest money you've ever made in your life, and make sure there's
I think the liability is clearly definitely a deterrent for a lot of people who want to buy a college bar. I can't imagine it's an easy thing to do.
I get it, because you got to have someone who's on top of their ID, like looking at the IDs. And if you don't have that, I mean, if you do have that, then suddenly you're probably going to become a less popular bar in that area.
Exactly. No, you got to toe the line.
Exactly. Any final thoughts on this national championship? We talked about it the least, but I'm like, I don't know what I have to say about it. It was a bummer. We were pretty close.
I mean, it's definitely something that, like, you think of that Auburn one as like the closer one because it ended on a field goal, and Dyer was down, and it is unfortunate. This is Mariota's last game, and it makes you like wish for something more for him, something more of, especially seeing how his NFL career ultimately turned out, and he's still back up in Washington, and he played at the end of the game. They're winning a lot, so he comes in a lot more in relief. But it's definitely a damper, I think, unfortunately, on his career, on that season, that it didn't get to end, at least on that kind of last minute field goal kind of thing. And Zeke Elliott and Cardale Jones were kind of an unstoppable force at that point when they beat Alabama in the semifinal, and we thought we were on a collision course with Bama, and we've thought that for a long time since that era, that like the two opposing college football ideas at the time of power and slow and methodical dynasty, and this flash new money speed was always on a collision course, and that Ohio State comes in and gums up the works a little bit there. And so we never actually play them. And same with Auburn. We were going to play Alabama in the national title game before that Iron Bowl that year, where Auburn and Cam Newton upset Alabama to replace them in the national championship game. So it's weird. And this year, maybe the playoff will give us more scenarios where eventually we will play Alabama in sort of that idea. And now with Kalen DeBoer there, that it puts a little bit of more of that interest back into it, because Alabama obviously stylistically has decided that they are, like everyone else in college football, explosive plays and fast and dynamic in that way. But it was just unfortunate that our greatest team ever probably ran into this weird team of destiny, like you said, with the third string quarterback and Urban Meyer, historically great guy, right? And Zeke Elliott, just an unstoppable cannonball of a human being.
I hate him so much. I genuinely do. Not as a person. As a person, why not? But I think it's and it's clear, like these last two, which are like, the not the closest we've ever been to beating Ohio State, but the best teams we've had against Ohio State. Both, I mean, I think so many Big Ten members still, a little less now because we finally, through Cristobal and Lanning, have finally kind of broken this, but like have thought of us as a flashy, quick team that doesn't quite have the talent on the lines. That is what makes this 2024 game so different. This is a fair matchup. We are the big boys just like them. We're even in the same conference as them. So different. James, this has been a really fun walk down memory lane, honestly. I think we covered a lot. I'm sure there's a million details that some fans will be like, how could you forget about?
I think we covered it. We went in every little rabbit hole we possibly could find in 1968, I think.
Hell yeah. I mean, we talked about Bobby Kennedy Jr., so.
Oh, yeah. Hey, people forget, huge part of Oregon's history.
Yeah, no joke. James, please plug Ditch Ritch, plug everything you're doing right now, because it's always such a fun read.
No, thank you. For those of you who don't know, I write a Substack email newsletter called Ditch Ritch. I've referenced it a couple times here, but this season has been really incredible, both in, I feel like, hitting a little bit of a stride writing wise, as well as the response and subscriber count has climbed in a way that I didn't really expect even in the last month and a half. And so I'd love to keep up that momentum. And if anyone is interested in, game preview, game review, as well as just fun stuff like Dolly Parton's Eugene, Oregon.
I read that one. That was great.
Hopefully we're playing that at the end of the game at Ohio State. They'll play Dolly Parton's 1972 classic Eugene, Oregon over the loudspeakers as our victory song. I got a great piece about that story and about that history and why she wrote that song.
I'm always in my head. I'm always like, what if we replaced "I'm Coming Home" with Dolly Parton? Eugene. That's just me. I know that's sacrilege to something. I don't care that much, but yeah.
well, maybe it'll take that spot of our. I Love LA that the Dodgers have, or that celebration song that we don't really have, honestly, other than the fight song. So yes, please, if you haven't already, I know I've gotten a lot of crossover with you guys, the Quack 12 guys. You guys always are so great at letting me on and let me plug it. But give it a read, give it a subscription, send it to friends of yours that also love the Ducks. Like I've said, I hope to sound a lot more like those snarky 60s columnists than just your regular run-of-the-mill analysis, which is great. It's much needed, but that's just not what you're going to find with me. You're going to find stuff that's a lot more, just digs into these rabbit holes and relates to you in a way that a fan relates. So give it a read.
I love it. And maybe we'll get you hopping on for like some reactions of this Ohio State game. Yeah.
I'll give you some firsthand accounts. It's going to be a crazy day.
Hell yeah. Day. That's awesome. You going there?
Yep. The season ticket, basically, the season ticket costs less than an individual ticket for this game.
No joke, man. No joke. That's awesome. That'll be a great time. Okay, Ditch Ritch is the site. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. This is a great time.